Great.
Well, all I did was research. So I
Uh-huh.
Googled the maps around Cooks River, Undercliff, which was where I was born, Bayview Avenue, a millennial
Mm.
ago, and then sent. And I also found an Indigenous book that was written in the area. Sent that to Marty, and her comment was, "Well, we're not really worried about the people. It's more about the ground itself." So I've
Right.
sent that to Marty, and so just maybe it's a floodplain. So where we lived, every time the Cooks River flows into Botany Bay, it was a in the mid 50s. There was a lot of industrial factories on the Cooks River, and so they were dumping materials into the Cooks River. It blocked up. You couldn't swim in it. And then in the yeah around that 50s, 60s, 70s, we would flood every 5 years because there would be a water flow that wasn't clearing in Botany Bay. So they did a lot of dredging around that area at the mouth of the river, which cleared the area. They also, with waste uh, dumping laws tightened up, and businesses couldn't do that. A lot of that ground then became less industrial and more residential. Um, Across the road for me was a municipal dump, right? That was so directly opposite and to the maybe 100 meters down the road. So for my first 10 years, there was seagulls and trucks and dump and occasional waft of unpleasant smell would come across, and then that they stopped using that and they created a parkland, and that now is a beautiful parkland where people cycle around, and it's about the size of maybe 5 or 6 football fields. So it's quite a decent size. So it's at the bottom of a hill, a very large hill. It comes in. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. My brother and I used to jump on our bikes and ride around the reeds of Torella and a couple of other creeks and things like that. Never swam in the river, ever. That's it.
Okay. All right. So we have to go back a few 100,000 years.
A little bit
Okay.
before my time, Marty. But anyway.
Yes. Well, the point is that we're trying to kind of in our times, we're trying to be nice to the planet, and we're trying to course correct climate change, and we humans are standing outside of the big natural system that is life in the universe. And we just don't get it. We think we can fix the planet, we can fix the weather, we can fix this, we can fix that, we can fix the business. Well, none of that's true until we remember in a bodily way the experience of being part of the big system of life. We have to experience that we are, here's how they say it in indigenous cultures, spoken into being. In main part, when we're living on planet Earth, the old Quechua word Pachamama, the Earth Mother, she speaks us into being, at least at Earth scale. And at celestial scale, there are other forces that speak the planet into being, and she is a force of creation, and she speaks all the trees and the iguanas and the humans and the jaguars and so on into being. And until we get that, we're going to be separate. So one of the most magical pieces of technology I've ever been introduced to is in South America. This is their version, and every indigenous culture knows this in one way or another. Wherever you are born as a human, wherever you're born, there is an intelligence in the literal earth, not the human stuff, in the literal earth, the bedrock under Manhattan, whatever it is, that gets stamped into you as you're being born in that spot. And so whatever the power of that land and its waters is, you carry it. And you're meant to use it in your life. And this is in addition to whatever other big gifts that you have. And most people in the modern world were born in cities. And, I have people say, well, I don't know, there's nothing but concrete. And I said, look underneath, right? And I think I mentioned one of my students from Europe was born in a European city and looked at the geology under that European city. And there are folds in the bedrock and the layers, and the way the earth rises up and dips down and rises up and dips down is exactly how he gets big ideas for business. That is his dynamic. And when you realize that it's not your ego doing it, that something in the earth is still speaking that stuff into you, you never end up with, oh God, I can't think up anything. You never end up at the ego level of consciousness trying to figure it out inside yourself, right? You've got a bigger source. So we want to look at the geology, literally, okay? So if I look at Botany Bay and Cook's River, one of the big obvious pieces of the place you were born is that it is a floodplain, meaning that the rivers, the waters of the planet, that's part of the geology. Number one, the river flows into a bay. So where rivers are concerned, they are connecting forces. So you are born with a capacity to connect stuff. Rivers come from a headwater, from deep within the earth, from the center of our capacity to create, rising up, flowing through a landscape and connecting. When a river connects to a bay, to the ocean, we always connect what we're doing to larger consciousness. And this is you. I know you're very modest about your skill, but this is you. Really, I mean, look at what you're doing in the world right now. You've risen through a new headwaters and said, God, there's a generation of business people who really need my help, making a huge transition. And the only way to help them do that is, this is what we were talking about yesterday, is to get a bigger view, flow them along that river to the bay. So they are working in a different dimension of consciousness. This is you. And the floodplain is water representing consciousness and our fluidity and negotiability. A floodplain is that river, that flow of consciousness, every now and then informing a wide area of that geography. Just, okay, now we're going to like seed the whole place with this knowledge of connecting to bigger dimensions of consciousness. And this is stamped in you. It's like a light code. I always think of them as barcodes someplace in our DNA going shining and stuff. I'm just doing, there is bedrock underneath that river as far as I can tell. And I'm just taking...
the sandstone is a major element of the area. So the hillsides are all sandstone.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's a lot of marine deposit sandstone. Yeah. So the thing about sandstone is that it's malleable. Sandstone. It's easily shaped. And in the Western world, we tend to get rigid and hard like granite. And we prefer to get even harder if we possibly could, so nothing changes us because we don't like change. But sandstone is constantly changing. And there's that expression, the sands of time. And what do? You work with people who are moving through a timing. That's what we call a cycle of action. And when people come to a completion of a cycle of action, a business has its own timing, doesn't it? A phase of a business has its own timing. And because you have the wisdom of sandstone in you, you understand that as we move through a cycle of work, a cycle of a business, or the business in total, things are changing. Yeah, things are changing. There's that flow of the river. You understand the flow, the momentums, how things change through time, and how to keep moving even as one cycle ends, a new one is beginning. This is in you. This is what interests you. It's what lights you up and opens your heart, and you want to help people with this because Pachamama says so, because you got that stamp, that light code in you when you were born. And it doesn't matter the mess that humans made on top of where you were born. Pachamama, she's underneath there, and she still knows exactly what she's doing.
Thank you. It makes me feel good, right? So that I'm on a pathway, and there's grounding there that actually absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
A couple of questions that automatically popped into my head as you were speaking, and these are sort of more mechanical questions. So is it the actual place that you were born? So like, there's a longitude and latitude point, or is it the area around which you were born and lived in for a period of time? So is it an immediate stamp, or is it
Yeah,
immersing in it over time?
It's immediate. Now,
Right.
you also absorb the wisdom of other lands where you live and work, but where you are born, it's immediate. And I once had a mentee in a group who was just completely up in arms about this business of where we're born, and this person said they were that her parents were traveling and she was born one night and they kept traveling, so she couldn't possibly blah 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 blah. And so I just kept hounding her. Where was it? Where was it? She's, I don't really know. I don't. So I finally hounded her into a pretty close guess. It was a good enough geological area. And we looked at the geology of that area. It is exactly who she is.
Mm.
Exactly. The power, the connectivity, there was a lot of seismic activity and underground lava rivers, and it's just exactly the way she is, and the way she runs her energy. And when she decides to make a move, up comes the volcano. It is the place you actually come out of the birth canal.
Right. Okay.
There's no escaping. I tried to escape mine. I think I shared that story about how uncomfortable I was about where I was born.
And yours is the plains, isn't it? Yeah, the plains
The
of
middle
Iowa.
of the middle of the middle. Born in St. Louis, I grew up not far from there in the middle of Illinois. So it's basically the same geographical region, but I was born on the banks of the Mississippi. And the Mississippi is the principle of river. It's the principle of connectivity, of axial alignment. And I was born under those big Midwestern skies in flat land where you could see. There was a pathway to the northwest and you could see the northern lights. If they were big enough, we could see it. So I was born connected to the Northlands. I was born connected to the river, connected to 6 feet of rich black topsoil in which you can grow anything. So manifesting things, that's in me, connecting things, that's in me, aligning, being axial to situations, that's in me. Knowing the dome of the sky, which contains our maps of becoming, that's part of the geography. How sky and earth come together.
So, Marty, we were talking before we came on air about how I shared my experiences over this, 8 weeks. Well, now we're into this 8 recording of this, and it's been a fantastic journey for me in like it's opening up. It feels like the onion, and and it's each time there's another layer that's peeled off, not for exposure but for freshness. So I've talked about there's this washing over me of a feeling, and it's hard to describe it. It's an experience, and you talk about it being experienced. So I wanted to if we can, because I said that I think that this type of language is often referred to as woo-woo, right? So it's unexplainable. It's mystic. It has no relevance in business because business is a hard edge. Need to make decisions about all of that. How is vision going to help me in my business? Right? Tell me how I'm going to make the next sale and make profit and cut expenses and all the rest. So that's hard. This hard edge. And I said, I want to change the narrative on this so that,
Right.
wake up, people, wake up. This is
Mhm.
not woo woo, right? This
Mhm.
is human connectivity with people. And if you don't connect with
Mhm.
people around you, that you will be left behind, right? And
Yeah.
time will tell. We're already seeing a shift. So,
Right.
given that premise, right, and assuming the people who want to who are leaning into that will continue to listen. The people that have discounted it already, they've gone, right?
Yeah. Right. Oh
Bad
well.
luck, right? You
Yeah.
miss out, right? So
Yeah.
what's the practical application for this? So the business owner's sitting there going, oh, okay, all right, there's something in this for me. I would say
Mhm.
go back and listen to the eight previous, go and listen to your podcast,
Mhm.
listen, do as much research as they can around this subject. But what's a
Mhm.
practical application? Say, for example, for me, right?
Mhm.
I hate talking about me, but let's talk about me. So what would
I
I
love talking about you.
with this information now in my business, what would be a practical application of this knowledge for me to then go and take it and peel off the next layer?
Okay. Um, First of all, I want to just put something out to everybody who's listening. Steve just touched on this. What we're talking about is original human wisdom. And there have been cultures preceding ours, tens of thousands of years of human history, successful cultures using this wisdom, which is really the wisdom of how consciousness actually works. It's technical. Yeah, we haven't yet in the modern world built a, a society where everyone is taken care of, but other cultures have done it. This is us we're talking about. So I just want to say that first. This is us. And humans used to live in a much bigger relationship with nature. And if we're going to do that, we have to open up to a more I'm going to say metaphor-based language. So when I talk about the earth speaking us into being, this is a way we can experience the physics of life happening out there outside your house. So we're using a language that humans have used for eons to great success. So if anybody's on the fence here, really try to let your imagination turn on so you can feel what we're saying. Now let's come back to Steve. We've just talked about all these powers that he was gifted the moment he was born. He's got the light code in him. And I just tried to convince you, Steve, that you are that wisdom of the land where you were born. This is how I know you, right? And if we're going to do business really well, number one, we have to know who we are. If you're running a business and trying to be somebody else, your business is not going to succeed. You could probably run yourself ragged with a few successful years, but eventually it's going to collapse. You aren't being in business. You're trying to create a false facade and have that part of you do business. So number one, you have to be yourself. In business, we always start with who are you? So Steve, you can, number one, use this kind of knowledge. You don't have to actually directly get your client into this conversation because not all your clients are going to be open to this. But you can learn to sense the deeper gifts that a person has. And I know you can do that. You can just like it doesn't have to be precise, just a deeper sense. Like I know that guy gets really nervous and he gets really rigid, but feels like he's really grounded someplace. And I'm going to take him through a big transition. So I just have a sense that someplace he got really grounded in the land. And I'm going to be grounded when I'm with him because I'm going to wake that part of him up. So number one, this is very useful in making deeper relationship with your clients. If you're going to take a client through a growth phase, why else do they hire us? Through a transition, you have to have a good connection, right? So that's number one. Number two, just will come more directly to you. If I'm Steve and I've got a client and I know the land that spoke me into being, when I ponder my client's situation and I'm creating processes to take my client through the transition they've asked help with, I'm going to call up the part of me that is river. I'm going to just pop that in my imagination and I'm going to listen. I'm not listening to my ego. I'm not listening to my prefrontal cortex. I'm being the river. And I'm imagining my client, where they have flowed from, what the territory they're flowing through now. I'm going to imagine, because I'm a river, I'm going to imagine their river. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. And I'm going to get downloads. I'm going to imagine the bay that I'm going to flow my client into. I'm going to get downloads left, right, and center about that client, very specifically about their business, who they are as a person, what their financial needs are. This brings very specific downloads. And then I might, if I'm Steve, I'm getting downloads about my client, flood the plane. Just imagine myself. What else shows up? You'll get more downloads, because this is how your relational mind is processing information. And if you use our imagination is a faculty. It's not something fake and false. It's a faculty. And that's just a Western word for relational intelligence. So we become aware of our client. We're using our imagination, remembering the feel of what the earth put into us. And then we start processing information in that way. Yeah. And then I might remember sandstone and the capacity of sandstone to be shaped by process. And I'm going to imagine the shape of my client. I'm going to get a download. Things I can't see if I'm thinking in my prefrontal cortex, trying to reason my way through. Relational intelligence doesn't need reason. It creates it, but it doesn't use it. And relational intelligence doesn't use logic or language. It creates all that, but it doesn't use it. And so we were talking about this yesterday in the masterclass, bringing awareness into our relational brain, if you will, and getting a new level of download, a new knowing, new ideas, new images, new metaphors that turn into things that we can speak and deliver to our clients. But first and foremost, I would say, Steve, you have to be this yourself. You have to realize every day, you are the headwaters, you are the river, you are the sandstone, you are every day flowing into that bigger bay of consciousness. And you have the capacity every now and then to infuse everything around you with your wisdom.
Someone listening to this for the very first time, I imagine that what they would be experiencing is doubt. Yep. Because how do I trust this? So can you talk to that point?
You bet. You have to understand that trust follows experience. You will never have it prior to experience. This is a neurological fact. If you're feeling doubt, then the only thing for you to do is step into the experience and find out. And if you're unwilling to step into the experience, just let it go and go someplace else. Otherwise, you'll torture yourself with doubt, and that's quite debilitating. Yeah. So what we're talking about is we're learning the physics of human consciousness. And you can have a little faith in physics. It's been pretty constant for how many billions of years do they think the universe has been around? Physics kind of works the way physics kind of works. Try it out. It's not going to kill you. It will actually open you up and you'll feel better. Steve, you felt better just hearing a reflection of who you actually are, these deeper powers. And when we step into something new, there's more energy in that new thing. So don't mistake that higher energy frequency for your fear. It's just more energy. And we have to get used to more energy if we're going to be successful.
I could give an example where someone who is the people who are listening to this, when you meet somebody for the very first time, you don't trust them necessarily, right? You might have a natural tendency to trust people until they provide evidence to them. But there's like, do I like you? Yes, I like you. Do I know you? The like trust, right? And so that whole, the experience of the more time you spend with somebody, the more you get to know them, the more you experience the good, the bad. Are they funny? Are they too serious? Are they serious? Not serious enough? All of that. Is there a match in that relationship? And so when so if you think about this as a friend or someone who you are meeting for the very first time, it's experience them, and with that experience, it'll either be a good experience or it'll be something that you didn't like. Walk away from it, and then the more you experience it, and it's always the evidence supports the theory. So if you have evidence to support the theory, you believe it. And so the experience is what we're looking for here.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I actually would go a little further, like I always do. Don't show up with a theory. Don't show up with a preconceived idea that you're going to ask reality to match. Don't show up with a judgment. Don't show up with an idea that you don't trust until. Just show up. No judgment, no attachment, no agenda. Just show up and have an experience. And if you have an emotional response, it belongs to you. It's not the experience itself. And as you collect data through experience, then as Steve, as you're saying, then you know if you like something or you don't like something. And there's no need for judgment. There's no need for preconceived defenses or boundaries or ideas. Certainly no preconceived theories. Very limiting.
Wonderful. I'm just keeping an eye on the clock.
Thank you for that, Steve. Look, we do honor the 30 minutes, and look, we're 5 seconds off. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Bye.
Another riveting conversation, and you've inspired me to go look at the history of where I was born, definitely, and that'll happen. I'll reach out to you separately, Marti, when I find my history information of the land. You guys started talking about some really interesting things there at the end, and about people, coming into the new, and how best to bring themselves. And I love what you said there, Marti, about coming in with no expectations, no agenda, no ego, no attachment, and therefore no judgment, and just being open to what you learn. And I wonder, would that be a nice sort of topic for us to lead into next conversation?
It's the gateway.
So we're talking about judgment coming in and how not to judge, or how to be open.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly. And it is, as I said, the gateway to full consciousness. It's a brilliant idea, Av. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for those who joined us. I hope you enjoyed that little entree.
I'm just going to put a plug in. Sorry, Av, to cut you off, but I'm going to put a plug in for the 6-Star Business community. If you're watching this, you're on the LinkedIn. We run master classes, and if you're a member of the 6-Star Business, you actually get access to those master classes. So you can go back and listen to these videos. They're free, but the master classes is where the hidden secret sources are. Am I going, Ev?
You're going really good. And he's not even being paid.
Oh, that's great.
It's cost me.
I
It
love
just
it.
costs me.
Yeah, it does. That's true. This is true.
No, but yeah, it has been a revelation for me and my business, and I know that it would help you if you are open to it. So it's a beautiful community.
Yes.
Come and join us.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Steve. And everything he said, it is a beautiful community. The masterclasses are amazing, and Marti just did hers. So it's where someone actually teaches. They teach. So it's not just selling themselves, it's teaching an aspect of, their genius. And we want to give our members that level of insight, of knowledge, so that they can become the best versions of themselves, and use all of the gems around them, like the collective wisdom and knowledge, to get there. So yes, it's a special place, and we have a lot of fun. And of course, we do catch up every fortnight. So yes, reach out if you're interested. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you hopefully in, I think, 2 weeks, but we'll put out the notice, and we'll see you soon.
Great.